Yeah, just as a reminder, we are now recording. Your video will show up on the recording if you're on now. It's not a huge issue, but if you're worried about it, then you can turn them off. So without further ado, I will begin the meeting with the actual gavel, which is the one that past chair Johnny Wong has got around to sending me in the post. And it's not the gavel that I've been using, which is genuinely my personal gavel, which is really sad. And that gavel will be handed over in a few short moments to Helena Bland, who is the incoming chair for the next year. It's very exciting. She's going to be taking over most of the hosting duties for this meeting and even more of them in the next meeting as we complete that handover process. Thanks to everyone who's joined. Hopefully we can get live on Facebook in a minute. I'm not going to do a whole big speech about how I'm the outgoing chair, just that I'm, as always, grateful that people have joined the meetings throughout the year. It's been very helpful, and I'm looking forward to building for the next year. So I think, unless I've got anything mixed up there, without much more to say, I'm going to ceremonially hand over the gavel. Helena doesn't have a gavel with her, so there's not going to be much, there's the gavel. It's been handed over. Okay. I'm just going to, Joe, I don't know if you'll be able to share video on the group potentially, just because you're an admin of it, but if you can do that, then by all means go for it. But yeah, we're going to get going. So welcome to the virtual stage, Helena Bland as chair. And Helena, if you just want to get going with the agenda.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ben. So let's get going. So the minutes of the last meeting can be found on the JCR website. There are no matters arising, there are no JCR announcements, and there are no questions of officers. So we'll get going with our first and only motion of this evening, and that is the motion to introduce the role of representative officer, and Sophie Tice will be hosting. So I'll hand it over to her. Feel free to unmute and we can spotlight you.
Okay, fab. Hi guys. So the motion for this evening is to, is to introduce a representative officer. And essentially what this is a umbrella and networking position for the minority reps. And so its purpose is to kind of be a position to talk between the minority reps, increasing communication between them, and hopefully creating more joint intersectional events, discussions, and that sort of thing, as well as chairing termly meetings between the minority reps. And the bigger purpose of this is to increase conversation between the minority reps and kind of other groups, for example, the core exec, because right now the minority reps don't have a representative on the core exec, and so this representative officer would act as his representative, passing on any and all issues that might arise, and therefore hopefully just providing better support, representation, etc. For the minority reps. And then in addition, the representative officer would also act as a communicator between the minority reps and the SU, because I've kind of worked on this motion with Alicia, and Alicia definitely found this year when certain things happened, for example, with a really awful thing that happened with the Zoom bombing with LGBT, that the SU was really, really helpful in providing support and guidance. And then therefore we thought it'd be really, really helpful to have that extra point of contact between the associations and the minority reps in college. And this is like not a new thing college-wise at all. Actually, I kind of came across this while I was doing the welfare booklet for WAM, because it's a thing in many other colleges whose welfare booklets I was looking at. So for example, they have a communities rep in Cuffs, they have one in Grey, it's kind of all over, and we've had conversations with those people or kind of people who've experienced this and had really, really positive feedback. So we hope it'd be brilliant here. And from a WAM point of view as well, one of the things I was thinking with this is that it'd be great to have even greater communication between the minority reps and welfare, for example, on campaigns, to make sure that we get the full breadth of representation on issues, for example, such as consent, etc. Because obviously it's really important to include everyone and being as diverse as possible. So all in all, just to conclude, it's a facilitating, networking umbrella sort of position with the minority reps, and we're hoping that it will just to help communication between the reps and the core exec, between WAM and the minority reps, and between minority reps and the SU. So yeah, please ask any questions that you might have.
Great,
Nice.
thank you so
Sorry to jump in, Helena, just to let people know, because I've realised I forgot to, you can ask questions via a variety of ways. There is the Google form that is in the, it's in the Facebook link, it's in the chat here, and you can put in questions either anonymously or with your name. If you want to ask any questions over Zoom, if you just put in the chat, you can say that you want to ask a question, and I can, you know, call on you there, or you can ask the question in text in the chat, and that's fine too. And we're going to just have to give a minute, because I forgot to mention that before. We're going to have to give a minute for any questions to come in. So now it's just the slightly awkward bit where we have to sit about. While we're here, I'll let you know, unfortunately, we've not been able to live stream on Facebook today. So if you know anyone who is planning to join on Facebook, just let them know that the only way to join is to join. And yeah, we'll just sit around for a moment and wait for any questions to come in about the motion. Okay, I'm conscious that the Google form takes a little while to get through, so we'll just give it a moment longer. Thanks to everyone who's joining. Okay, I think we will probably call it there. So, I mean, over to you, Helena. This is your bit.
Great, thanks. So thank you, Sophie. And we will move on now to our first election for this evening. And so that will be for the role of Publicity and Communications Officer. And we have two candidates running for that. We have Alicia Bickerstaff and Lily Owen. And so no, please note that Sophie Paxton was originally running with Alicia, but now it will just be Alicia. And so we will start with Alicia. So whenever you're ready, we'll just quickly spotlight you, and feel free to unmute and begin your host.
I'm unmuted, cool. Hi, so I'm Alicia, I'm a second year. If you do LGBT or Revival Charity Fashion Show, hopefully I've met you by now, or you might just see me wandering around college with a camera. Basically, I would love to be your Publicity and Communications Officer because I love Marys and I love publicity. And I think social media is a great way to kind of bring us together as a college and also showcase all the amazing things that everyone does in Marys. And especially since COVID, when we've all become like so reliant on social media, I think it's going to be such an important part of college life next year. So I would really like to broaden that and work on that aspect of college life. Why I think I'd be good for the role? Basically, since coming to Durham, I've pretty much thrown myself in to graphics, photography, videography, pretty much any opportunity. I photographed a lot of college events, like I did the live lounge last week. I will be posting those photos soon. I've worked on numerous charity fashion shows, including DUCFS, so I'm kind of used to high pressure environments. I've been running the Revival Charity Fashion Show this year, so that includes like branding, logo design, running the Instagrams. I've been running the LGBT Instagram for the last like 2 years, and I've also done publicity for like quite a few college societies like Basement Jazz, Environment Society and things like that. So I have quite a like broad understanding of publicity for different areas of college life and also beyond the university. So this also means I have quite a broad network of like photographers and videographers that I can call on for helping to publicize college events and things like that. And I'm very experienced with kind of like the logistical challenges that come along with college roles and kind of organizing and publicizing events. I've also worked with Rosie Menace, this year's Publicity and Communications Officer, a fair bit to do kind of some logo design for POVD and stuff like that. So I have a pretty good understanding of like what the role entails. And I did a lot of Freshers Week publicity as well this year. So I both directed and edited the Freshers video together, did a lot of photography as well for that. And I know that's a really big part of the role. So I think I'd be like very well experienced to undertake this role. In terms of my ideas, I would really love to like expand the role of publicity. I think a lot of people are really interested in publicity but don't really know like what it entails. So that's why I really love like Lily's idea with like the TikTok committee, and I would kind of like to work with the TikTok committee and also like broaden those to kind of have more committees focused on specific social medias like Instagram perhaps and things like that, because I think that would give people a really great gateway into publicity. I would also really like to start running like masterclasses, because pretty much most societies have a publicity officer. And I would really like to start kind of like broadening people's skills and bringing people together, so every society has the opportunity to kind of develop their own cohesive aesthetics and things like that, and we can all kind of like share our skills within college. Also, I know this idea was floated this year, like launching a photography committee to kind of give people a chance to sort of break into photography, because I know for me, like event photography has been one of the things I've absolutely loved, and I've loved doing freelance photography in Durham. So I would love to, that's my timer going off for my for how long my hush should be. But I could go on and on about how much I love doing videography, how much I love doing photography, and how much I love doing graphics. But in summary, I would basically bring this passion to this role, and I would love to work with all the societies to just create really exciting videos and really exciting content that we can share on all of our socials to really make sure that Mary's is like a super vibrant community, and everyone feels like they kind of have access to our community and things like that. So if, you know, that sounds good to you, please, yeah, vote for me. I would love to do the role, because yeah, it's my favorite thing, Mary's and publicity. So I hope that sounds good. Yeah, Helen, I only have 3 minutes, right? Yeah. Okay, cool, thank you.
Great, thanks so much. And now we have Lily Owens. So I'll quickly spotlight you, and you can unmute and begin whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily. I'm a first year currently living in college, and I would also love to be your publicity and communications officer, and I believe I also have some great experience for why I believe I'd be great for the role. So obviously starting this year with the help of our president and vice president Joe and Sam, the TikTok slightly unofficial but really fun committee was founded, and then since then we have, like, you know, we've started to grow our following. We've got thousands of views on the page and it's all really fun. I feel like its full potential hasn't been realised this year quite yet because of all the setbacks the year has faced. And so I would love to carry it on next year and see where it can go, because I feel like incoming freshers, especially, TikTok is a really great way to access that wider audience. And also previous experience, I have had to start and run social medias for a couple businesses along the way. And so this has included running social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of them really. And through this, I've learned that using analytics and things like that really helps you to learn when's best to post, what posts people interact with the most. And I think especially using things like interactive Instagram stories would be a great way to get a better level of interaction on Mary's social medias. And then further to the experience with the businesses, this has meant I've also been included in the branding side of things, creating logos, publications, promotions, running promotional events, things like that as well in person, which the in-person side of it is also an aspect to look at as well, I think. And then in terms of ideas for next year, I think it would be very important to understand how incoming students use social media as well as our current students, so we can outreach more. And I think especially for next year, it's important to understand how useful Instagram will be, because whilst everyone still uses Facebook, next year, and the majority of my year had actually never used Facebook before we came to uni. And I don't think that's recognised really by a lot of, like, I don't know, like people who run societies and things like that, because I've had to learn how to use Facebook, to be honest. And so I think if we don't stop using Facebook, but we just put all the information we put on Facebook also on Instagram, we'll make everything a lot more accessible for incoming students, as well as kind of our first years as well, including myself. And then also I think to help incoming freshers, especially when everything was a little bit uncertain at the moment, something like a Google Docs form or something along those lines would be really great to compile all the societies, clubs and associations they can join at Mary's to make everything a bit more accessible for them. And in terms of this, I would love to work with all the society teams, sports teams, associations, for any help they might need on promotions, logo designs, everything like that, because I think Mary's has so much potential that incoming freshers they need to come here basically, and we can all get that done. And then overall, I basically generally just believe that I would love to help not only incoming freshers to understand how amazing Mary's is, but also to help current students by promoting societies, sports teams and associations and everything along those lines. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you, Lily. So we'll just bring Alicia back, and then we'll have 6 minutes for questions. So as Ben mentioned, you can put questions in the chat, you can put them in the Google Doc, you can ask them live, lots of different options. So we'll take a few minutes just to wait for everything to catch up and for you to put your questions out.
We've actually got one question on the Google form already, which is great. It's an anonymous question. And just as a reminder, we will swap the order of answerers each time. So we will start in reverse order with Lily and then Alicia, and then we will go in the opposite order if there's more questions. So it's quite a long question. I just need to expand the thing on the Google form. Okay. Next year's freshers might have seen stories in the news about this year's freshers at uni having a difficult time in terms of COVID and things being shut down. A big role of the Publicity and Communications Officer is promoting the college to prospective students. How would you go about this in light of things that have happened in the past year and things that freshers will have seen? So again, we'll start with Lily on that one.
So I really understand where this person is coming from, because I just actually couldn't return to uni for the second term because obviously I was living in halls. So the social media side of the Marys, JCR, and just Marys in general was really important for me to actually stay connected with uni. And I think letting incoming freshers know about the available options we have for social medias, like this Google Doc kind of thing, that have all these links to social medias available, because I know it's on our JCR website, but even just getting students to the JCR website to see all the links to Facebook, Instagram, everything like that would be really important. And so I think platforms like Instagram would be really good because they're a lot more accessible to incoming freshers and they're used a lot more regularly by people my age and the year below me. So I think implementing things like that and letting them know that through like experiences how we stayed connected with Marys while we couldn't necessarily be here would be the best route to take.
And same question to Alicia.
Yeah, this is actually a situation that I had to deal with this year. So after the whole LGBT Zoom bomb incident happened, we had quite a lot of freshers reach out to us over social media and actually ask, like, is Mary's a safe place to be LGBT? And again, I also kind of dealt with this as well when we were doing post-offer visit days. Obviously, we were doing it virtually and we had to kind of show freshers, like, no, Mary, like, you know, what Mary's has to offer. So I kind of, yeah, I've had a fair bit of experience this year in sort of like showcasing Mary's and kind of throughout the kind of COVID scares and also a kind of national homophobia scare, which I was not prepared for at all. But yeah, the sort of ways that we work to deal with that with post-offer visit days, we really did a lot of Q&As. I think Q&As can be really important. So posting these in the Instagram stories, putting together videos. I think video is a very important medium when we're trying to showcase Marys and kind of reassure people, because it shows, you know, we are actually real people and we exist and we're, you know, we're moving about. And I think sort of interactive question and answers can be really helpful because then people can feel like, you know, they can ask stuff. And yeah, we can use Instagram stories for that. I think branching out onto new platforms, especially like Twitter and things like that, because I know for the LGBT community, there's a big Twitter following in Durham. And so kind of branching into those communities can be really reassuring and helpful. So just having a broader range and just kind of making sure that we're showing sort of that Mary still exists and we're still here, and just making people available to answer questions, I think. So like I would perhaps want to get, you know, the members of the JCR, you know, maybe the incoming president and stuff like that, filming sort of them doing kind of quick talks about, you know, what's so great about Mary, just asking current students, asking freshers, you know, what's your experience been? And maybe doing some quick like video reels that we can share. I think just a lot of, yeah, filming people talking about their experiences would be really helpful to be quite reassuring. At least like that's what we found with the LGBT community when we had a very similar situation, and just making people available to talk to. That's kind of like what I found is like the most reassuring. And I think that's quite possible through the medium of video and kind of Q&As and stuff like that, which we can share on all the various socials. And yeah, making sure people have access to the JCR websites and that's all signposted as well, because it can be quite difficult to find. So probably putting up posts on the Instagram and on the Facebook and stuff, kind of show like signposting people to the JCR websites would also be, I think, quite a good way to be reassuring. So yeah, that'd be my answer. Okay,
and we've actually got a couple more questions, so we'll try and keep moving at a decent pace with those. And we'll go in the opposite order, so start with Alicia and then going on to Lily. And I will read out the one first, and then Karina will definitely get to your question. And then if anyone's got any more, get them in, and we may find time, but we might be pushed for time. So obviously, the publicity officer works hand in hand with a lot of other exec, especially sports and societies. How do you handle working alongside other members of the exec when your roles often overlap? So we'll start with Alicia on that one.
So yeah, teamwork is kind of something, again, like teamwork on the JCR, I've had a lot of experience this year. I mean, like, for example, the motion we had earlier, That was something I worked on with Sophie, like in my capacity as LGBT, her capacity as WAM, and kind of organising the other liberation reps to come together and like put that motion together and put that forward on the JCR. I did that earlier with the earlier in the year with the motion on the FREP team. So I've really been like very keen this year on bringing together all the different kind of like liberation reps in college. And I would like to think I could bring those kind of skills in working with other execs. I think I've worked on a lot of committees since I've been here in Durham, so I'm all too aware of all the kind of tensions that can emerge and kind of making sure that everyone feels comfortable and everyone's happy with what's going on. And I've always just found that, like, and I found this with the Revival Charity Fashion Show, I've been working with like 30 models, 20 member exec, like there's a lot to organize and a lot of people to like, talk to and stuff like that. And I've just found that like communication is the best way, like just checking in on people, making sure that, you're kind of a friendly face that people feel like, hey, if I've got a problem, like I can say this to you. And just constantly being available is really helpful. Like replying to messages goes a long way when you're working with other people, just so that people know you're available and ready to chat or whatever. So yeah, I would probably just try and keep in constant contact with people, let people know what I'm doing. Group chats are a really great way to kind of like keep in contact with everyone and make sure everyone's on the same page. I found that Slack, we've used Slack this year on the Revival Charity Fashion Show, and I found that really like helpful in terms of like having a separate platform away from Facebook, which can be quite helpful for communication. I know, probably a separate thing, but yeah, basically more communication. That's my answer to that question.
Okay, and same question to Lily.
Thanks. I think the way I view the role with publicity and communications in promoting Marys in general is definitely more of a Marys in general, I think, requires like initiative and new ideas from yourself. But I think when it comes to working with other execs, especially like the question said for sports societies, it's definitely more of a support role and understanding where they want to go and then listening to their dream and like trying to help them in that direction in the way that they want to go, not necessarily trying to force like my ideas on them, understand, listening to what they want and then trying to put that into reality for them if they might not have the means to do so. And I think like with previous experience, things like that, I definitely think I would not only be able to, but absolutely be willing to and love to as well. I think that'd be the best way to go. And with things like sports and societies, it's not only important to promote it to incoming freshers, but maybe also to current freshers, where we didn't have an in-person freshers fair or anything like that. We had the virtual one, obviously, but I think it's still important to consider current freshers as an important audience to promote to next year as well. So working with sports teams and societies, not only promote to incoming freshers, but the next year of cohorts and also second and third years who might want to get involved with new sports and societies, but don't know where to go. So I think that would be a really good way to do that. And in terms of what the sports and societies want, it's just a case of communicating with them again in whichever way they prefer to do that. It would just be the way to go, I think, rather than trying to tell them what to do when it comes to sports and societies. I would just like to work in a support role for them so they know they can always come and ask and things like that. And I will always try my best to realize what it is they are wanting to do. And I think I would do that very well.
Okay, and we are a little bit pushed for time, so we'll get to Karina's question, but if I could just ask for answers as concise and rapid fire as possible. I appreciate that's difficult with there's so much to talk about, and sorry to a couple of other people who've asked questions in the Google form. We just won't have time to get the meeting done if we go through all of them. I'm really sorry. Karina, go ahead with your question.
Hopefully this can be a super quick question, but I was the publicity officer along with Francesca last academic year, and we got asked quite a fun question when we did our HUST, which was, have you had any theme ideas for the Freshers Week Freshers video? So yeah, that's my question for you.
And we will start with Lily again on that one and then go the other way.
Okay, just off the top of my head, as it is now, I think potentially a good idea would be something along the lines of like summer holidays or like tropical holidays or something like that, simply because no one's been on holiday in such a long time. That could potentially be a fun route to take of like, you know, like the Hawaiian, like floral necklaces, things like that, just to make it a really fun, like almost like beach themed kind of thing. So people feel like they're moving away from home, they're moving to uni, and it's almost like this fun holiday in a sense that we just no one's had for a very long time, just to keep the answer really short.
Okay, and same question to Alicia.
So I guess in the past we've always kind of gone with like stuff that begins with M based off like different brands and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think of ones off the top of my head, but I'm not really haven't got it with me. But I think, yeah, just going for some kind of like pop culture references, trying to find something that's like quite inclusive. I know this year it was M&M's, so probably just something quite bright, quite colourful, quite eye-catching. And I'd like to work with Will on this as well. I think maybe something quite active, because like we've all been sitting at home for like the last year, so something very like get up and go. I haven't got a specific thing as of yet, but maybe something kind of sports themed or something like that. But again, I'm very much like a communication kind of person, but I will kind of build this idea. But yeah, something very active, bright, colourful. That's what my idea.
Nice one. Okay, over to you, Helena, for the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, guys. We'll quickly unspotlight you. There we go. And so the next election we have is for social chairs, and we have two sets of people running for that. We have Natasha Dudley-Richardson and Amy Parker, and also Alice Watson and Matt Newhall. So we'll start with Natasha and Amy. So I'll just quickly find you to spotlight, and there we go. And so whenever you're ready, please unmute and begin your host.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm a second year physicist.
And I'm Amy, I'm a second year archaeologist.
And we would absolutely love to be your social chairs this year. We love being engaged with Mary's community and just getting involved in any way possible. So we think we'd be really well suited for this well and would manage it well.
Yeah, so to get a little bit of an idea of why you should choose us. We are very used to being flexible in fast-paced environments. We both have experience of managing and running societies. So this year we've been co-chair of, or co-presidents of St Mary's Yoga Society. Natasha has also been president of Stone Society this year, which has been very successful. She's also been the office captain for Rowland, so very committed and dedicated roles.
We've also got like lots of experience being responsible. We're very reliable and would be keen to get all the socials done in a timely managed way, and also make them really flexible depending on the situation. Like Amy said, we're used to working in flexible and fast-paced environments. We're also used to working on a team and in leadership, being presidents, and also from working as Durham student ambassadors, and also myself being Midsummer co-chair this year, and also being formal sec. I have lots of experience working in events, planning, and Mary's events specifically, kind of the formals, planning the balls, and being on committees, which we've both done as well. We're also very creative, so we have lots of fun ideas for how we could run the different formals, and we absolutely love Mary's, so really want to get engaged with the social side, get everyone really excited for the next academic year, whether they're online or in person. So some of our ideas include.
Yeah. So yeah, we've had a very tough year this year in terms of the social side of Mary's. But we would love to introduce a family formal, and we know that people haven't really been able to meet their college parents a lot in person this year, and we think a college family formal would be a good way for college parents, kids, grandparents to get involved together, have a meal together, and that could be run during Freshers Week to kind of take the pressure off as well from having to organise something outside of Mary's. We'd also like to introduce a friends formal with a fun name such as Mary's Mixer, where you could sign up using maybe a Google Docs form. There might be some options for interest that you could sign up for, then you'd be matched on a table with people who have similar interests to try and get all the different years involved in Mary's and commingle together and share an interest.
We also really want to get like campaigns and charities involved with some of the social events. So we're thinking that like really makes use of the outside space, the outside bar, having summer barbecues, and also like charity formals, working with WHAM, FemSoc, Disabilities Rep, ethnic minorities to really get everyone engaged in the community and potentially even raise awareness and funds during the different events. And also we really want to improve the publicity for formals and balls, etc., such as releasing the menu early, making sure sign up is fairer with the tables, sign up that's been done this year, and using Google Forms, and being really clear what's included in prices, what you're getting with each social event, so they're really fun and you know what you're getting, basically.
Yeah, so I think that's basically everything that we would bring to the role. We're both really dedicated to Mary's, and we know that this upcoming year will have a lot of opportunities to really evolve the social side of Mary's. Yeah, so yeah, that is the end of our list.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Let's quickly remove your spotlight. And then next we have Alice and Matt. So I'll quickly spotlight both of you as well. Oh, where is Alice? There we go. Okay, so whenever you guys are ready, go ahead and begin your host.
Hey guys, I'm Matt and this is Alice, and we're both third-year computer science people. We both love Marys and we're wanting to be your social chairs for this year. It's going to be a bit weird because we're both in 2 locations, but we'll see how this all goes. So we'll crack on with it. Why should we be your social chairs for next year? Personally, I've got loads of experience with events management. So I've been a rep for the last 2 years. That means at the start of the year, I put on loads of events for the incoming freshers, things like that. This year, I've been the Mary's Day head of music. I'm on SOCCOM as secretary, so I've got SOCCOM experience already. I'm Basement Jazz's social sec and vice president, so I've got managing experience, doing presidential things and sort of tasks around. And the big things I've done recently, I've been tech officer this year and also music rep for Art Society. So I know a lot of the things that are going to be needed for some of the formal sort of like tech requirements to make it easier for the incoming senior tech officer. If we're ever doing music at these events, I know already what's kind of needed so we can help liaise with other societies and make everything easier for everyone else, I think. Last year, I was also the Winter Ball head events last year. So I already have a bunch of ideas for what we can do for the next Winter Ball and things like that. Pretty much everything we're going to need to do for next year.
Yeah, so like Matt, I've also been on the college exec, I've been on the SOCCOM exec, I've been president of Mary's Cheer for 2 years, and this year I'm president of Mary's Dance. So I have a lot of experience in organising rehearsals, socials, and different events. So we're now going to talk a little bit about some of our ideas. So obviously this year we've had a very different social event calendar, but we have had some new events that I think have really worked and we can bring into next year, such as Boozy Bingo and Taskmaster, which we really enjoyed taking part in, and we think they'll be even more fun in person. Something that's also been quite a big issue that people have been talking about is priority for formals and events next year. Obviously, loads of people have missed out. So we want to make sure that it's fair for everyone in every single year. And this may be done by holding multiple formals for popular formals, such as we do for the Freshers Formal and for Christmas formals.
Yeah, so following on from that, we'll also want to have a real look at formal pricing. We don't know if it's going to be possible to actually reduce the cost of a formal, but the things we want to do are things like liaising with the working class rep. So maybe like one formal every year, we can find a way to subsidize it for some students because they may not be able to have the funds to like pay for all these formals. But if we can find a way to help them pay for it, that might be ideal. And additionally, there might be a way of sort of advertising sort of what food's on offer at the formal and if there are any other entertainments to that formal, so people know what they're paying for before they go. So if they don't like the main, they don't have to go, or they can stay in advance if they don't like it, things like that. Another thing would be we want to do an overhaul of the entire sign-up system, because currently the whole stick is like, just fill out the form as fast as possible and you can get on. We want to try and introduce maybe like a point system so people that don't always attend formals because they're usually like slightly late or maybe just like 1 minute late can try and get on if they haven't been to like too many that year.
We also want to increase fresher involvement in SOCCOM. I know when I was trying to get experience to run for later roles in SOCCOM, I found it quite difficult, especially running for like ball exec positions. So we want to have a fresher run formal. We'll create a committee and find people who are really excited and interested in being a larger part of SOCCOM. And this will also give them the experience in event planning. We also would like to hold a refreshers formal for this year's freshers, because obviously they've missed out on basically all formals this year. So we hope that'll be a really nice thing for them to look forward to next year.
Yeah. Yeah, just to round this all out, I think we're looking into more sort of outside bar nights. Obviously, we hosted the live lounge last week. I think that was a pretty good success overall. It sort of led into sort of a karaoke night as well. If we can do the same thing again next year, I think we'd love to do that. Things like a summer barbecue as an informal in the summer also be a great idea. I think we could definitely look into doing that. And then finally, just from a sort of management perspective, we're looking to do bi-weekly meetings, just improve communication across sort of social committee as a whole, and then sort of make the management of the guest list a little bit easier. We both do computer science. We've already had some sort of technical ideas of how to do this. I'm not going to go into the boring aspects of that one, but we've had some ideas on that front. So there you go. But in conclusion, we both love Marys. We'd obviously love to be social chair, and yeah, hope you vote for us.
Great, thank you guys. So I'll just bring back Amy and Natasha, and we'll have another 6 minutes for questions.
Yep.
So we'll start.
Sorry.
So we'll start with Alice and Matt for these questions, and Ben will move on with that.
Yeah, we've got a question already on the Google form, and just in terms of, obviously we've got 2 candidates per candidate, if that makes sense. So either if you want to like each answer one of the questions and alternate between the pair of you, or if you want to take half of each answer each, totally up to you guys. The first question from Helena, and I'm assuming social chair Helena rather than JCR chair Helena, is there is no right answer, but would you keep online events like the Zoom formals we had, or other COVID specific events like the Christmas hamper scheme? And so yeah, we'll start with Alice and Matt on that.
I'm happy to take this one. So I think obviously the online events have been really great in being inclusive, and it's meant we don't really have like a cap on capacity. So I think they've worked really well in some cases. Obviously a Zoom formal's never really going to match up to an in-person formal, but I think we could look at doing things like boozy bingo if there's going to be enough interest doing that online, because I think that worked well, and I really enjoyed doing it with my house and everything. So I think that worked quite well. Christmas hampers is also something I think we would look into doing as long as there's enough interest. I think really advertising things. But yeah, I think it would just be about finding a place for these online events, because obviously everyone's probably going to prefer in-person events, but I think there still could be a use for them.
If there's one thing I could just quickly add on, I just wanted to say that in terms of sort of like the half-term areas, we could definitely do something like halfway through that, maybe like a boozy bingo to keep people going sort of like between exams or between Christmas, things like that.
Okay, and then Amy and Natasha.
Yeah, so I think this year has been really tumultuous, and it kind of going into next year, we don't really know what's going to happen. So I think planning for all eventualities is probably the best option. I personally have loved being involved with SOTCOM this year, having the chance to do like online formals in whatever capacity we have been able to do. So obviously in person is idealistic, but I think one way we can really make it more in person, even if it's online, is maybe like doing the Christmas hampers, but for formals, like a ball in a box or a party in a box or a formal in a box, and like spreading that out. So applying that across the year would be really good if COVID was still a big problem. As well, like Matt and Alice were saying, like implementing the boozy bingo, the escape room, we love the escape room. So like really like putting those options in. So even perhaps over the holidays, we can try and implement them as well, to keep everyone really involved with Mary's and the community over stressful exam seasons, and keep the social side really going.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I wouldn't have anything else, just exactly what Natasha said.
Okay, and the next question is coming from Joe Castledine, so you can just unmute and ask, and we're going in the opposite direction answering that one. So Natasha and Amy first.
So one of the biggest challenges with any role on the core exec, but especially social chair, is they're volunteers. Social chair is quite a time-consuming and big role. Now, you're all going into quite important years of your degrees. From my position this year and in previous years, how do you kind of make sure that people who are volunteering are able to give what they need to give in order to make social events possible, given that they're so busy outside of this kind of activity?
Yeah, I think the main priority for that would be to really create a good exec and formal committee, and make sure that people who are on it are going to be dedicated to the roles that they then pick up. For us, that would be able to let us delegate roles to different people, taking the roles up ourselves that we know that we can manage, and obviously being as dedicated as we can be as well. But yeah, definitely aiming to let anybody who wants to help out with formals be able to do that, and make sure that we give as much time as we can as well, and also create as diverse and worthwhile exec as we can.
Yeah, I think just adding on to that as well, like in terms of time management, this year has taught us a lot about doing multiple roles and doing lots of things at the same time, like during exam season, you know, like planning midsummer ball during exams when we don't know what on earth is going on. Like that's really taught me like about time management and really planning for a lot of eventualities. So I think in that kind of like having a committee where you have lots of different people you can rely on for the different roles and taking things up on yourself should you require to do so. And personally, I'm on a 4-year degree, so next year is just like a middle year for me, so I can dedicate as much to this role as humanly possible, which I probably will do.
Okay, and same to Alice and Matt.
So yeah, from a time management perspective, just to start off with this year, I think between me and Alice, just like between us, I think we're on about 10 execs. So we've definitely found a way to try and manage our time this year. So we can definitely try and like continue that into next year. I know it's going to be a busy year, but we're used to it, sadly, at this point. As in terms of the rest of the exec, again, finding the right people for the roles is always just a good thing. We'll have a proper interview process to find all the people we're going to want. I think the main thing for next year that's going to be important is just consistent and better communication, actually sort of like consistent bi-weekly meetings, things like that, so we can keep people updated all the time. It's just going to go a long way. If people can't make it, we'll always have a secretary on standby with good, decent notes. Everyone knows what's going on. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that, I think it's really important to have those good relationships between the other members of the exec as well, so that if perhaps you are struggling like one week, I think that's also why running with Matt, like we've worked together before on projects in our degree. We've organised many house formals in the middle of exam seasons and things like that. And this time we won't have to cook. So that will perhaps be a little bit of a lighter load. But I think it's really important to make sure that your exec know that you will be there for them, and to also have people that you know you can perhaps lean on if you need it, but you can also take on some of their load if they need it.
Okay, thanks guys. And we're going to have what will be our last question for this role, just because of the time limit. And it's a question from Ethan Rawlins. Now, I've spoke to Ethan just quickly over message. I've had to rephrase this a little bit, just because questions can't be directed towards the policies of one specific candidate. So forgive me if I've rephrased it in a slightly clumsy way. But the question is, how do you go about making sure that formals are financially accessible to all students, whilst also making sure that the financial support goes towards those who really need it and isn't taken up by people who are just seeking to get cheaper tickets effectively? So we'll put that question first to Matt and Alice, and we'll go back in the reverse order.
So like we said in our HUST and on our bog sheet, we obviously changing formal pricing is not something that's completely up to us. We have to work with the staff in college on that, and just generally the wider university. But I think working with the working class rep is going to be really important to help identify those people who might be struggling, because everyone deserves to be able to go to a formal in college. Like, it's such an integral part of college life. So I think working with the working class rep to identify those people and work out how best we can help them. So whether that's subsidizing one particular formal for people who are struggling, something like that. And I think it will just be about communication in order to work out who is in need of our help in this area.
Yeah, Alice pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one. I think just properly liaising communication with the people who actually know this sort of college support team, working class rep, they will know the people that do need genuine support, and what we have is communicate with them on everything.
Okay, and same question to Natasha and Amy.
So I think like this year especially, like everything has kind of gone up in price, or it's been very unexpected kind of where we're at with stop disease and everything. So I think very much liaising with college, seeing where we can subsidize and where we can't, and maybe even trying to put an emphasis on with sign up that it limits who go kind of like everyone has a priority to one formal or so that way the pricing is a bit more fairer, as in no one can go to all the formals necessarily. So maybe by year group, and then maybe also using like informals that are a little bit less expensive to run, and similar bots. So again, people get that formal experience. And then also seeing where we can implement who's kind of entitled to like Durham grants, working with if we have a working class representative or similar kind of organizations to kind of see where we can lower prices, and also if there's a policy where we can actually implement for students who do need to have prices lowered or subsidies, that they get what they're entitled to through the same process that they would receive like a Durham grant or similar. Yeah, so I think that's kind of how we'd approach it.
Okay, and I think that's all we've got time for question-wise, so I'll hand back over to Helena.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And I'll quickly remove you from the spotlight. And then we have our candidates for Assistant Female Welfare Officer. So we have two candidates. We have Alicia Tate and Phoebe Cook. And so we'll be starting with Alicia. So I'll quickly spotlight you. And then you can begin your host whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm first year. I'm doing history. So I live in college this year. So I kind of decided to run for this role because I've literally loved getting involved in WAM this year. And it's definitely something like I want to continue and get more involved in. So for me and for so many other freshers, it's been such a lifeline. Like when we all kind of got COVID and went into this lockdown, that was such a great support network for us. And I found like from the start, WAM was so involved in our lives. So for me, it's something I just want to continue and kind of access on that higher level. So I've been involved in quite a few of the campaigns this year. So I've done like a little bit of work on the social media. I've hosted like a little film night and done some stuff like that. So I felt like I've been able to get involved and kind of have a little bit of experience in how things run and like how WAM works basically. So as well as that, I feel like I'm quite approachable and I would love to be able to like talk to people, and kind of I do have that confidence to lead a group of people and help people get involved. And I think that's a big thing of like helping new people get involved in WAM and showing that like to whichever extent you want to, you can be involved in WAM and like be part of the committee. Like even if that's just helping out in one campaign a year or completely throwing yourself in, like to whichever level, I'd really like to help people get involved in that. As well as this, I've kind of been talking to the new president of the Art Society, Lucy, kind of talking about how we can do like a little bit of a crossover and run like some more mindful things and kind of have WAM as such a central part of college. So like daily things of like even just like colouring in, which sounds so basic but can be so helpful for like mindfulness and people's just well-being. So having that accessible to both livers out and livers in, and like helping people in whichever way they can access welfare. So as well as that, I've got a lot of experience like in this kind of thing and just like in these leadership positions. So it's definitely something I'd be really excited to get involved with this year.
Great, thank you so much. I'll quickly unspotlight you. There we go. And then next we have Phoebe. So you feel free to begin your host whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So as you already know, I'm Phoebe and I'm first year as well. And I'd love to be your new next female WAM officer because welfare and self-care are topics I'm very passionate about. And I know I could bring a lot to this role in such an overwhelming and like strange time. So why choose me? Starting university in such a weird time, I was really anxious at first, but because of like Mary's environment, I've really tried to take myself out of my own comfort zone, and that's led to me joining like loads of like great and new societies. To like starting off obviously in like just attending, but then obviously I've progressed to exec as well. So I'm now in the fine arts and crafts, random acts of kindness, and obviously WAM as well. So I've got like experience as well as Alicia with like how the general WAM committee runs, and I've been involved in their campaigns and I've really enjoyed it as well. I'm like proud of myself and how much I've like developed this year, because I would never have thought of running for this like this time last year. So I can't wait to like see how much I can progress onto next year and take myself and challenge myself further. So some of my ideas for the WAM officer is obviously a collaboration with the FREP team to make sure everyone's freshers experience is as smooth as possible, because starting university is like overwhelming for anyone. I know it was definitely for me, and it's just like you feel like you're just on your own, but it's like you want to make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe and have the best time possible, and the best way to start a university career off with a bang, basically. I also want to work closely with other society reps, such as the international rep, the LGBT rep, the working class rep of like minority groups, because obviously sometimes they can feel a bit exclusionary in the community. So I want to try and decrease this as much as possible and make sure they too feel like they have a place within the Mary's community. Another thing I'd really like to start doing is advertising like welfare and like little self-care tips on WAM social media regularly, like just like books, podcasts, and obviously I'd take ideas from everyone else, like they get the whole WAM committee involved. So people could just send me suggestions, but like literally just a pamper night, like say you just want a face mask on, because I feel like sometimes people forget to take care of themselves, and that is the best thing when it comes to their own well-being. And I know myself, like you just need to take care of yourself, and it's important to do this. And I also want to collaborate with some other societies, so like sports and societies, or like fine arts and crafts, rock, like random acts of kindness, which I'm also doing. And like, because obviously this year we've had limited networking and getting to know people, obviously, and sometimes the dread in Zoom is just a bit overwhelming. So I know that everyone's had probably less interaction with people as more, and it's like it gives time to do mindful activities, have some downtime for themselves, and also get rid of the sense of like loneliness sometimes, because I know when I first started I didn't expect to feel as lonely at times as I do sometimes. But I feel like if we start getting interactions with more like societies, creating more events, obviously hopefully in person if we're allowed to, it'll try and counteract and yet again create like further enhances like experience at Mary's with the environment. And obviously I'd work inclusively with the WAM committee, and they can get involved as much or as little as they want. So like say they just want to send in a recommendation for like an Instagram post, or they want to help with the campaign or something else, they can obviously do that. It's just making WAM as best it can be, because I know how vital it is for the Mary's community for it to run smoothly and people to feel at home here. So thank you all so much for listening, and like feel free to contact me on email, Facebook. Usually I'm a fast replier, usually. But if anyone has any questions, that'd be great.
Great, thank you, Phoebe. So I'll just bring back Alicia, and then we'll have 6 minutes for questions.
Yep, and we've got a few questions already. Right, okay, we're not going to get through all of these in time, so we have to prioritize in order of when they were asked. Oh wow, we've got lots of questions. Okay, if we could keep the answers relatively rapid fire, obviously very difficult, and welfare being a sensitive topic, but we'll get going with what ideas do you have for new WAM campaigns? That's an anonymous question from Google Drive. So starting with Phoebe and then going to Alicia.
Well, obviously this year I've been on both Charlie's and Sophie's campaign. So Sophie's was the body image one and Charlie's was the sexual health one, and I created like posts for them as well. And obviously I got thinking then to start off with, and I feel like mental health is probably a one I'd probably want to focus on, specifically like with anxiety, depression, OCD, and even like a bit of loneliness. Like I'd touch on loneliness because I feel like that's something that's normally quite missed at university. Like people normally think university is this big experience. You do your degree, you go out, you hang out with friends, but like people don't realize how much time you actually spend on alone, especially this year. Because obviously you were doing your degree in your room, so I was spending like most of the time on my laptop on my own. And because societies and everything has been like obviously on hold, or they haven't been as interactive with the situation, there's not been as much to do on the evening. So I feel like that would be the type of campaign I'd do, and hopefully they've done a great job with it all being online, but probably get more in-person things next year. So have like sessions during the campaign weeks and create posts that obviously people can look back on future reference. And yeah, so obviously I developed the idea, but that's just initial thoughts.
Okay, and same question to Alicia.
So I think something that I would try and like go for as a campaign is maybe something around alcohol awareness. So I think like with the incoming freshers, like obviously we're in a pandemic, so people haven't had as much opportunity to like go out and drink and have those experiences prior to uni. So most of the incoming freshers, this is going to be their first time clubbing, as well as for some of like our freshers who'll be their second years. And I think it's so important that not everyone drinks, and there can be such a big pressure around it. And I think just having these kind of posts and this campaign that shows you like whether you drink, whether you not, that's okay, and just making sure people are, you know, aware of like alcohol and drinking and how to keep themselves safe, because there is such a drinking culture at uni, and I think sometimes it isn't talked about enough. So I think that would be a really good idea for a little campaign.
Okay, brilliant. And we will move swiftly on in the now opposite order for the next questions. Which is that welfare officers can often be exposed to quite emotionally heavy issues. How do you make sure that you look after yourself if exposed through a drop-in to one of these issues? And yeah, so we'll start with Alicia for that.
I think the biggest thing is, as much as you're going to be emotionally connected to the situation and give that kind of sympathy and understanding, it is creating that level of detachment and understanding that you can only do as much as you can do, and you give what you can in that situation, but it is looking out for yourself and making sure that you will only, you know, you'll only give what you can, and there's always going to be other people on the committee and other people on the exec who can help you out if a situation feels maybe too big for you to handle, or something that emotionally you can't deal with, because we do all have our limits and we do all have things that we struggle with. So it's, you know, reaching out to other people and like making sure we protect ourselves and that we can always like feel confident going into a situation.
Yeah, mine's similar to Alyssa. So it's basically remembering that the WAM officers are only humans, they're only students themselves. So you try to detach yourself from the situation as much as you can to help this person. But obviously, at the end of the day, taking care of yourself is an important part of your own well-being. And I think Durham's great because they've got like signposting and counselling services that I think welfare teams can have quicker access to. And it's basically trying to take care. You can't help other people if you're not helping yourself. So that's obviously something that, so like just having like nights off for yourself, for your own well-being is like something that I think is good. And like directing for counseling services, or like just taking care of yourself, because we're like only students as well. We're not counselors, we're not trained properly, like we haven't done all the courses. But it's just remembering that you can only do so much until you're like your whole well-being is you're gone. So it's brilliant that like Durham has such a helpful team of like the other WAM people and other welfare colleges and counselling services. And yeah, that's about it.
Brilliant, thank you both. And we've got another question, so I'm just trying to get through which ones. Okay, we'll try and get to a few more. Question from the Google form from someone stay anonymous. Sometimes people can feel nervous about attending the WAM drop-in sessions, so how do you encourage people to come along? And we'll start with Phoebe on that one and then move on to Alicia.
I think the most vital thing is to make people feel like they're comfortable, because I know that obviously Durham has already got like Nightline set up, and that's like a completely anonymous, like you phone up and they give you like, it's non-advisory, not anonymous service. But like WAM is obviously in-person drop-ins, and obviously this year it's been a bit like more, I think probably it's a bit more because it's on like Zoom, and sometimes it's a bit harder to like actually join the Zoom. But I think the most vital thing is making people feel like comfortable and feel like if they go to that drop-in, they're going to be listened to and they're going to be heard, because sometimes that's the most like vital thing to someone who needs help and who needs signposting. They think that they're going to go and the people are just going to think that their concern is not as big as they actually thought it was, or they're not going to be believed. And I think that's the stigma surrounding people who might need WAM's help, but they don't necessarily go for it. It's because the fear of not being believed or fear of being thought stupid. So I just try to make sure that like people feel comfortable and they feel like they're going to be heard, they're going to be listened to, they're going to try to be help signposted if they need help in signposting. But I think that's the main thing. It's just to let people know that if they attend a drop-in, they're going to be listened to. They're going to feel made to feel comfortable, feel like they can tell people without being judged, without being not believed. Because I think that's the most why most people tend not to seek help if they need help out of fear of being judged. But I tried to like stop, like do the best I could to not do that.
Okay, and same question to Alicia.
I think for me, it would kind of be important to make sure that, like, you kind of, in a sense, are part of college in a casual way, because if people feel comfortable speaking to you about just anything, they're going to feel more likely to maybe come to a drop-in or talk to you about something a little bit more serious. So I think maintaining a strong like welfare presence of WAM in college, so that people feel just more comfortable around you and feel you're more approachable. And I think like with the incoming freshers, it may seem a little bit daunting to like reach out to WAM if you haven't had anything like this before, like in school, might seem a little bit scary. So then kind of making sure that WAM is so present like in Freshers Week and even leading up on the social media, so people are so aware of WAM coming into uni that it's not like a delay in them coming to a drop-in. And I think with drop-ins being in person, it is just like having that, you know, that always an open door policy, just reminding people that no matter what you come to talk about, like someone is going to listen, be it like a small thing or a massive thing. Like it is all just that no matter what you come in with, someone is going to listen, and making sure that people just feel comfortable talking to you on a general basis and are then going to feel a little bit more comfortable opening up when they need to.
Nice. Okay. And we're going to now have to move on to what will be the final question, just because we're running out of time. And that is a question on here from Amy Harris. So Amy, if you want to unmute whenever you're ready.
Sorry, can you hear me? My Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Great. So welfare is kind of a role where it can be quite difficult to draw boundaries, especially if you're going out in like a social setting into Durham. Like a lot of people will see you as like, oh, the welfare officer kind of thing. And it's just, how would you draw boundaries between your like on duty and off duty kind of thing?
Okay, and starting with Alicia on that, right? Yeah.
I think it's just a big thing of like reminding people that even though you're in a welfare position, you are just still a student. Like WAM is student led, so like you are going to see people in life, and those boundaries are just drawn personally. Like it's just detaching, you know, that like someone could come and talk to you in a drop-in and that gets left in that drop-in. Like you aren't then going to ever bring that up. That is something that's just kind of put in a box. So, you know, someone will come into the drop-in, have that conversation, and that's where it is. So people don't feel like, okay, I can't talk to you like on a night out or around town because you have this welfare position. It's like reminding people that you are just a student at the end of the day, and you are just as approachable as anyone else. And those boundaries are drawn up like personally for you, and just detaching yourself from the role if that needs to be.
Okay, and same to Phoebe.
Yeah, I think it's like you need to draw lines between yourself of when you're on duty and when you're off duty, when you're having your student experiences. So it's sort of similar to when you're working on your degree into when you're like socializing, taking part in thingy. It's like drawing them individual boundaries for yourself, because you know as much as yourself how much you can handle. And it's the fact of some things get kept there, some things you keep there, and then it's like the separation of everything so you can enjoy everything whilst keeping it all separate. And it's like similar to what Elise was saying, and it's like what you say, like making sure you're not just seen as that one person. You are like, you're a student here as well, you're just as approachable. If you see them around town, if you see them in college, they like what they might have came to you in like a situation before, but like they know that because you're just a student as well, you're because of your presence, because of like other interactions that they've had with you previously, you're not going to say anything. You're going to be like, you're a WAM officer then, but you're a student at other times. And it's like trying to make the separation in your head as well as making it clear to everyone else.
Okay, thank you both. And that is all that we've got time for in terms of questions. So Helena, over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, guys. I'll quickly remove your spotlights. And so moving swiftly on to Assistant Male Welfare Officer. And for that, we have Charlie Harris. So I'll quickly spotlight you. And feel free to unmute and begin your host whenever you're ready.
Cool. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Charlie. I'm a second year studying English literature. My pronouns are he, him, and I'd love to be your assistant male welfare officer for next year. First of all, why do I want the role? I think it's been a really challenging year this year. Like, everyone's kind of been a little bit separated because of online learning and not everyone being able to go back in college. And it's made me realize like the value of services which give this sense of community even when we're not in person together, with WAM being one of these services. And I feel really, really privileged to have been a part of WAM's exec over the last 2 terms. And I've been very lucky to work with 2 fantastic welfare officers in Sophie and Amy, as well as a really incredibly supportive committee. And seeing how much all those people helped me in the role for the last 2 terms made me realize that I want to remain a part of WAM, both to carry on the good work that they've done, but also to help those, you know, new coming into the position, to help them settle in. But why vote for me? I mean, as I've mentioned, like, I've held the position for the last 2 terms, during which I've run my own campaign, the Consent and Sexual Health campaign. So I've had experience both creating and overseeing the creation of content daily for the course of 10 days. I've also been involved in 3 other campaigns, you know, editing content, creating canvas, you know, providing content myself, and I've also been hosting regular drop-ins. So I feel like I've got experience in all the facets that the role would entail. I've also prepped this year, and I was also been captain of the Mary's football B team. So kind of feel like hopefully I've shown that I'm capable of being placed in positions of authority, and that I'm able to juggle my commitments and make sure I give my full attention to those that need it. Although I recognise that personality alone doesn't win elections, so like I've got a few ideas that I would bring were I to be elected. Firstly, I want to reintroduce WAM's college presence. I mean, fingers crossed, Corona allows it, but we've spent the whole of this year online, and whilst we've managed to function as a welfare team online, I think that welfare works best when you're able to have that face-to-face interaction. However, I do realise that at the moment, the welfare officers, like, to many, may simply just be like names on a Facebook page, or just simply like, you know, sort of nameless, faceless characters behind Instagram posts. So I'm really keen to get sort of next year's welfare officers like into college and sort of show that we're all friendly, like approachable people. Because I realise that actually it might be quite daunting getting involved in welfare, whether coming to with like drop-ins or getting involved in posts. So I'd be really keen to show people that it's definitely something for everyone, that anyone can join in with WAM in any capacity. That being said, I also would like to maintain some level of online presence. This year, I've kind of been blown away by like how many people that the WAM's online campaigns have been, you know, involving, and how many people it's reached through social media, whether that's on Facebook or particularly Instagram at the moment. And I think it'd be a real shame that even if we were to go face to face, you know, predominantly next year, like, be a shame to throw all that online presence away, because it keeps a really good record of what WAM has been doing and sort of the messages that we've been putting out, and also sort of involves a lot of people. So, you know, whether people are studying in Durham or outside of Durham, or where in Durham they're studying, they all feel included and can get involved in online activity. And that kind of leads me on to my final point, which is that I really want to encourage wider college involvement. At the moment, WAM is an incredibly inclusive service and the committee is non-selective, so anyone can join. And I really want to stress that next year and get as many people involved as possible. That doesn't necessarily have to be creating content for campaigns, but could also be like encouraging constructive feedback on campaigns or drop-in services. But also maybe I was thinking of like some maybe wider, larger college events which are tied in with WAM, to try and show that WAM really is inclusive and really is for everyone who wants to be involved, and it shouldn't matter what capacity they want to be involved in. Thanks very much for listening to my host, and I'll be happy to field any questions any of you might have.
Excellent, thank you, Charlie. And we will move straight on to questions because we've got a couple already. And just to obviously remind everyone, it's 3 minutes for questions because this is a role with only one candidate running. And first question from Joe Castledine over Zoom. Joe, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just a super quick one. I'm just going to talk about a stigma really briefly. So you're a human, you've identified as he, him. So you'll do sports and you'll go to societies and you'll go to socials and you'll have your fun. But how do you maintain a responsible persona despite living that completely normal human life where you go to socials and you drink in bars and you go to clubs? How do you maintain that persona as a welfare officer while you're still doing that?
I think it's just about having some respect for other people, but also making sure that those around you have respect for each other, because especially, you know, for example, things like football socials or rugby socials get a really bad rep sometimes for sort of laddish behaviour. But I would hope that sort of not only myself as a, you know, if I was to be elected as a welfare officer, but also people like, you know, team captains or club captains would also be responsible for what went on in that socials. So I think it's not just a case of the single welfare officer being responsible for anything that happens on the social, but also kind of like being the start of encouraging a wider movement to try and change attitudes, both within the club and also attitudes towards the club, and make sure there's like a wider sort of attitude of respect towards each other and towards people in other groups.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Excellent, thank you. And we've got another question from Amy Harris on Google Forms. So that is, obviously this year we have struggled to maybe do all we would like to do, particularly with regards to in-person welfare provisions. Should we be able to move back to in-person activities? What would you like to introduce or do?
I think the first thing we do is definitely get sort of like supply drops and things like that, whether it's sexual health supplies, but also just like care packages. I know people were talking about in an earlier house, like talking about Christmas care packages and things like that. I think that's really great. Sort of showing, having like wham time with that. But then if in-person events are allowed and we have things like formals, I think it'd be really good to have wham kind of like semi-associated with formals. I think a few years back there were things like the Valentine's Day formal was also associated with wham's like consent and sexual health campaign, and so you know there'd be condoms listed on the table, or sort of small things like that. I don't think it has to necessarily be huge sort of like changes, but I think just small things just to remind people that we are kind of around and sort of providing help. I think that would be good.
Ben, you're on mute.
Sorry. I was just going to say we've not had any more questions just yet. I'm just checking how long we've got, but we may be coming towards the end of the time. Yep. So unless there's any last minute questions coming in, it doesn't look like there are. We will end up there. So thank you, Charlie, and Helena, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Charlie, again. I'll quickly remove your spotlight. And then next we have the Sports and Societies Officer with Rex Munson, but he has sent in a video cast, I believe. So I'll get Ben to pull that up for us.
Yep, on that just now. So if people could just let me know when it's up, whether the volume is all right. Usually it tends to be, but sometimes maybe a bit too loud or too quiet. So sorry, I'm just loading up the video and share screen. Share sound, optimize for video. Okay. First of all, can people see that okay? People see it? Sorry, I can't see people. Can someone say if they can see it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay, and just let me know if the sound is okay now.
Hey, I'm Rex Munson, a third-year engineer, and I'm running for Sports and Societies Representative. I've been very involved with Mary's over the last 3 years, even when it's just been online events. And I'm running for Sports and Societies Representative because I believe next year it will be very important in making sure extracurricular activities can return in the best way possible once the pandemic dies down. I have ideas for both the best and the worst case scenarios, but I will use a compromise of the two. So the best case is there's no restrictions and COVID is sort of gone. And that's optimistic, I know, but if this is the case, I want to make sure sports teams and societies can return to pre-pandemic operation, which involves having a really good freshers fair and maybe even an in-person refreshers fair for the current first years who are going to be second years next year, so that the engagement with sports teams, societies and just the college in general returns in a really strong way. I would also interact with the finance committee to ensure that the sports and societies budgets can return to a normal amount, and then also make sure things like the Trevs varsity and the rest of the big events can return in a very positive and very big way. The worst case scenario though is it's sort of like this year again where there's more lockdown, and that's much more pessimistic, and I'm not sure it's going to happen, but still it's good to plan for it. And this year there's been a few sports teams and societies who's raised charity money. They've done charity fundraisers. I think Rugby Running and GameSoc, and forgive me if I've missed any of those off the list, have probably raised around $2 to $3 grand combined for different charities. But my idea was to do a sort of college-wide charity fundraiser that all of the societies and sports would participate in, and they'd raise money in their own special way that was unique to that society. Like Rugby and Running could do the same thing they did this year. BakeSoc could sell some cakes outside the dining hall or something. And they'd raise money towards a single charity, and that way it's sort of like a friendly rivalry between all of the sports teams and the societies to see who can raise the most, but it's also uniting the college community together to do something fun and worthwhile. Some of my other ideas, though, include continuing the Facebook page that Hannah and Sarah set up, and the Team Mary's Instagram updates as well. They've been really nice to see what's going on this term. And then trying to organise a better calendar for sports trials and society taster sessions early in first term, because I think sometimes on Facebook it's easy to miss some of them. But yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm Rex Munson. So that's my host. Cheers.
Okay, thank you to Rex for sending that in, and unfortunately we'll naturally not able to go to questions just now. So I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, so our final election of the night is for Disabilities Representative, and for that we have Mark Boughton. So I'll quickly spotlight you, and then you can begin your host whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, I'm Mark. I'm a first year geographer, and I'd love the opportunity to be the Disabilities Representative. So this year, I've been very grateful for the support that has been provided by our college, and I'd love to be able to give something back to our community and make a positive difference in both current and future Mary students. So you're probably questioning, why am I suited to this role? For one, I have my own learning disability. Although it's not that severe, I have gone through the planning and received the help within the university system. So I would love the opportunity to be able to help others navigate the system, as it is quite complicated and often very hard to receive the help that you need at times. So I'd like to be able to help other people to get the aid and the help that they really need to thrive in this university environment. And my experience around this kind of element. So I have volunteered with young people aged 7 to 18 in the scouting community for the past 6 years. So working with all sorts of people ranging in disabilities from mental and physical. I believe like invisible disabilities are just as important as like the physical ones, and they are just as valid. I would love to be able to help people with invisible disabilities. And then within school, I was a house captain running events and kind of creating charity events based on the disabilities that people had throughout the years. So we were actively supporting them throughout the school. Then my plan as being a disabilities rep, I would love to join forces with WAM and create mental health campaigns surrounding the impacts uni work can have on people with learning disabilities, as they are completely valid, and it properly drags you down if you feel like you can't have access to the help that you need. Then I'd also love to create a buddy system between people that, like, if they're willing to, people with disabilities within the college. So it acts as a supportive network, and you can aid and kind of chat to people that may have a similar situation as you, and kind of talk without the judgment and stigma of like others. And you're more likely to be able to relate to someone with a disability as well as like being able to talk to your friends, but someone else with a disability is more likely to understand the point of view where you're coming from. And then also within freshers, I would like to set up a session where people can come with their specialist software that they need to download onto their laptops, because I myself really struggle with this, and I have other friends that I know have completely struggled trying to get software onto their laptops, and being able to like navigate this and get it all downloaded onto my laptop. I feel like I can aid others in this and try and I feel like I now have the ability to understand how all the software works, and I can get the process of it being downloaded onto the laptops. So then overall, I'd just like to finish with, I would just like to create kind of a supportive community with all kind of people from mental and physical disabilities, and just trying to be as inclusive as possible in our Mary's community. And so thank you for listening.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. And for the final time, if anyone's got any questions, you can ask them on the Google form, you can ask them in the chat. Mark may be having some slight internet issues there, but I think you're back now. That's all good. So yeah, any questions, send them in. I'm just trying to see if we've had any. Not had any on the Google form just yet, but we'll give it a moment. Just it takes a little while. And everyone stick around for a moment after the questions are asked, because I'll be posting the voting link and you can get straight to voting if you wish. We'll just give that 1 minute to see. Any questions in the Zoom just while we're waiting for any to come in over the Google form? Okay, we'll just give that one more moment. Google. Okay, I think we will call it there. So thank you, Mark, again for your host, and thank you indeed to everyone who has hosted today. I am now going to post the voting link there, and hopefully that should work. If everyone can let me know if it does work. Yeah, thanks again to all the candidates. I'll hand over to Helena in a moment for the sort of ending of the meeting and the final sort of wrapping up, I suppose. But just please vote. Please tell your mates to vote, obviously within the campaigning rules and whatever, especially for the candidates. But tell everyone you know to vote. Just really helps. And I'll just hand over to Helena to officially end the meeting.
Yeah, I think Ben said all, so please vote. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I know everyone's truly sick of Zoom, but thank you. And thank you.